I'm just going to take a couple minutes here to introduce our wonderful speaker for today, Dr. Nicole Gruel. So Dr. Gruel is an author, a speaker, a mama, and a specialist in spiritual and mental health. And she descends from a 700-year lineage of samurai. A near-death experience she had as a teenager and numerous other spiritually transformative experiences she's had since then have inspired her to cheerlead others through their extraordinary experiences towards a life of prosperity, joyful livelihood, and to become agents of awesome that they were meant to be. So Nicole has a doctorate or a PhD in integral and transpersonal psychology, and is on the advisory board of Spiritual Awakenings International, as Robert mentioned. She also mentors coaches for IANS as well as for ASSIST, and she's a certified counselor and life coach, and is trained in various healing and energy psychology modalities. But most importantly, she is deeply passionate about co-creating a more beautiful world where each and every person shines their quirky light with their warts and all, unabashedly bright. She's the author of a wonderful new book called The Power of Notes: How Non-Ordinary Transcendent Experiences Transform the Way We Live, Love, and Lead. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker for today, all the way from Australia, where it is currently already Sunday, Dr. Nicole Gruel. Nicole.
Yvonne, thank you so much. Sunday's a beautiful day, everyone. Those of you joining in from Australia, you know this. Thank you so much, Spiritual Awakenings International, for having me, and what marvelous company to be part of. It's an honor to sit here with, you know, all of you that are here live, and especially with people who I admire greatly that have helped educate me and be movers and shakers in this field that we are currently in. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'll jump on in and share my screen. There we go. How's that looking for everyone?
Good.
Excellent. So look, I hope you all get something out of this. I'm quite an interactive person. I'm more used to presenting live and getting live feedback. So Zoom is a different kind of feedback. So please do use the chat actively. I can't see what's going on in there right now, but as soon as I end my screen share, I will be going in, and I love reading all of these comments. And of course, our admin team is going to be sifting through that as well. And pop your comments in, things that resonate with you, things that relate with you, and all of those questions, because we're going to have a nice Q&A, hopefully a very rich Q&A discussion towards the end of this. So off we go. The gifts and challenges of waking up. We're going to dive into what exactly waking up might be. And of course, that's quite a general, broad term. So you can get the chat started by even writing in there, what does waking up even mean to you? Waking up or awakening, because different pathways, different understandings. So there can be... I love this. There can be a bit of a, shall we say, a stereotype, this, you know, projected image that being on some kind of a spiritual path is all love and light alone. It's peaches and cream, it's beautiful, and it's, you know, the beautiful things. And when we start off and we venture, you know, we're like Paddington Bear often. Here we go, and very bright-eyed, going off into the world of potential and what could be. And of course, I gather most people on this call today, if not you or a loved one that's very close to you, that's probably what's brought you to this today, understands that it gets a little complicated on the road, and sometimes we can end up looking like, you know, ragged bears most of the time. Hopefully a little wiser and worn for it, but adventuring on these pathways is about adventuring. There's growth, there's change, there's transformation, and it can get a little rough. So we're going to touch on some of those pieces today as well. So who are we talking about here? You know, once upon a time when folks are talking about awakening or spiritual experiences, again, there's this projected image that it's tree-hugging hippies. And perhaps there was an era, you know, a few decades ago, several decades ago, where that might have been true. I know that, you know, I had a father that very much fit into that global traveling, you know, meditating, tree hugging, et cetera, kind of generation. But what this looks like today when we talk about spiritually transformative, awakening, transcendent experiences is actually very dynamic and quite different. So there was a New York Times bestseller book that came out called Stealing Fire. If you haven't read it, please do. It's amazing. And in it, they say here, these are the types of people we're now talking about. Revelers, soldiers, scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, technologists, business leaders. These are people at the peak of their game, at the peak of their field, who are already have an understanding of human potential and are very curious about what happens beyond that, what happens more. We're talking about a massive economy where people are trying to extend and reach into a glimpse above the clouds, you know, that's something more. Now, of course, you have probably been the lucky ones where perhaps something has happened spontaneously along the way, and or, you know, have consciously engaged along a pathway to seek these experiences out. So who we're talking about here is really a very broad populace. And of course, I love this too. We're witnessing a groundswell, a revolution in human possibility. And what that has done for us is actually opened up the question of, you know, what's happening to us as humans? Are we changing? Are we, as some are suspecting right now, evolving into something new? There are some ancient prophecies in some wisdom traditions that have spoke of a time where there will be a new human that emerges on this planet. So there's different names for this. And we're in an interesting era right now between what's going on with the climate and this pressure cooker that we're in as a planet. And then, of course, you know, COVID times has elevated and escalated that human interconnection to another level as well. These have created a really interesting environment where this question, particularly within spiritual communities right now, is quite a hot topic of evolution. And, you know, I have the great privilege of speaking with so many different folks that are in it, that live it and breathe it every day. And there are many that are absolutely convinced we are in an evolutionary phase. Humanity is shifting. Folks are waking up on the collective level. I'd love, you know, in the comments, you can let us know, where do you sit on that? Are you one of those people with certainty where you know there's an evolution taking place? Or is there, you know, are you more on the border of maybe there is, maybe there isn't? Or, you know, I tend to be a bit of a pessimist at times. I sit on the uncertain. I'm a bit of a fence sitter on this one. And I even at times lean towards, I don't quite know that we humans have evolved much when I look at certain behaviors and ways of being that we have. So I'm hopeful that this can happen. I know in my bones that this is a possibility. And I know that it's happening in pockets, but I guess I'm yet to see, you know, signs that it is truly all over the place. But maybe you have, and that'd be great to hear. Another term that's being thrown around right now is Homo sapiens lumina. So the luminous, the light-filled Homo sapiens. Again, this idea that we may be evolving into the next form of what we are. And of course, that evolution, this is not a biological evolution that takes a lot of time as other phases of our evolution have done. This is one in consciousness where a shift can happen like that. So these evolutionary leaps can happen within our own generation. And that is new and incredibly exciting. So I was asked to share a bit about my story, so I'll do that, and you'll have a bit of context about why I do what I do, where I come from, and afterwards we'll jump into, you know, the gifts and challenges of awakening, and I really want to, you know, dive into your awakening experience and what's happening there. But here we go. This will give you a sense of me anyway. So as a kid, I was already born into a family that was pretty open to the non-ordinary. Two parents who were black sheep that really traveled the world widely and didn't conform in many ways, and had followed, they wouldn't use this language of following their spirit, but I can see how they were deeply understanding of their own intuition and following their own unique path. So I was born into this quite quirky family as it was. And it was no surprise then that as a young age, I had a lot of questions. Any of you with small kids know the why question. I have a 3-year-old now, and of course, why is one of her favorite questions. So that kicked in with me too at a young age. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why is this? Why is that? And by the age of 7, apparently I asked my father, what God do I believe? I don't actually know what I was thinking in my head as a 7-year-old about what God might be, but apparently that's what I asked him. And my father, bless him, he's no longer with us, but he gave me he's no longer with us in the physical, but he gave me a response that was to become both the greatest blessing and curse of my early life. He said, darling, anything you want to. And now, of course, for me as a 7-year-old, I wanted a clear answer that was going to give me structure in the world. Tell me what I believe and I will walk that pathway. And yet the gift that he gave in doing that as such an open door meant that I was forced to find out what those answers were for myself. So off I ventured into the world looking for those answers, and my genuine quest began at a young age, even though of course I didn't have the language around that. I didn't consciously know that that's what I was doing, but the movement had begun. Then at age 14, a first big experience happened that was to shape the rest of my life, yet I didn't know it at the time. So this is a picture of an amazing waterfall in New Zealand. And I was at this exact waterfall on this exact point in the river in a boat that looked exactly like this, only there were 4 of us in the boat, friend and I and the 2 instructors. And we'd been briefed that morning on how to ride the rapids and, you know, what you do and you pull back at the waterfall. And those of you that have been whitewater rafting understand all of that. So we went down the first time down this fall, and the thrill of it was just incredible. I mean, you know, those of you into extreme sports know how alive you feel when you do these things. And so we were like, yeah, let's do that again. And up the mountain we went, and we came down a second time. Only the second time we came down, you know, the dark clouds had started coming over. It was a bit more moody. The atmosphere had shifted somewhat. And we came to this exact same point in the river. And our raft went down and the nose bounced on the water at the bottom, and this time it tipped upside down. I was thrown out of the boat. I'm not sure if the others were or not. And I was raised a swimmer. I grew up around the beaches in Sydney. So my automatic response was one of a swimmer, which is where I threw my arms out to try and move. And of course, when you're under a waterfall of this size, it's 10 meters. I'm not sure what the translation is over in the US there, but it's tall. And when you have that much water coming over you, the worst thing you can do is spread yourself out more, because of course what happened was I got pushed down very, very deep into the water. So all of a sudden, I'm in black water, absolutely black. I had my eyes open, I'm looking around, and I didn't know which way was up or down or left or right. I had complete vertigo. And so I also knew there was no point swimming in any direction, because it, you know, what direction to go, I didn't know. And in that moment, I had a moment of sheer panic. I knew that this was my last breath. And a split second later, that was followed by absolute calm and stillness. The panic just evaporated. And from within that black water opened up a horizon of light. The only thing I've been able to liken it to is the movie Ghost, where Sally and Sam, is it? So that where the two characters meet up again and that horizon of light opens up. It was exactly like that. So a very soft light. And it opened up like this, and walking towards me in that horizon of light was my then living grandmother, who is the one that connects me to my samurai lineage. So she was walking towards me, and next to her was my first dog. I grew up an only child, and so my animals were like my siblings. We were very close. And that first pet had passed over. So the two of them were walking towards me in that horizon of light. And again, remember, I'm 14 years old. So my thinking was, oh, that's unusual. What are you doing here? And then a male voice here, very close to my ear, said, Nicole, remember to breathe. And with that voice, a recollection kicked in. My command center in my brain must have woken up. And I remembered the briefing, and I was supposed to curl up like a ball and my life jacket would bring me up, which is exactly what it did. And so the water went from black to dark green to light green and eventually to whitewash that you see at the top there. I was incredibly lucky to come out when I did, because as you can see with those beautiful mossy caves, there's an area where actually it went into a deeper cave, and I surfaced just at the mouth of that. And had they not been able to pick me up in the boat at that time, I would have had my death experience that day. So I'm very grateful to those instructors. And look, I was 14 at the time. My friend was a couple of years older. We were just glad to be alive at the end of the day. We didn't necessarily have to debrief over it. It wasn't some earth-shattering, wow, this happened experience. And, you know, probably because I was a child, I accepted it as simply part of what can happen and what is. Little did I know that would plant a very potent seed that would continue and does continue to fruit in my life to this day. So on I carried in my life. This is a picture someone sent to me the other day when we were backpacking around in Thailand. And this was me in my 20s. And the journey carried on in this deep quest and search to understand, you know, again, I didn't have the language at the time, but spirit. I was drawn to everything spiritual pathways, and carried on backpacking for years and years around the world. I would come home, work. I had various hospitality jobs, washing dishes, working in a bar. I'd earn money, I'd do my studies. And as soon as I had a break, I'd go backpacking again somewhere else in the world. Come back with, you know, a shoestring budget, and then go straight back in and dive and do it again. And I think what I was doing during that time was, again, you know, just trying to understand, who are we? What are we doing here? Who am I? What am I here to do? And after the blessing of traveling to so many different cultures and countries, something that emerged was an understanding of humanity, which was, we're all pretty simple at the end of the day. The vast majority of us eat, sleep, shit, sorry to be so crude, have sex, and many of us, or at least reproduce, and many cultures have some form of being involved with the sacred. And that, to me, kind of formed it in a nutshell. And it was enough to get a grasp of the outside world and to then begin drawing that into a deep inner journey. So, and of course, I befriended lots of random animals as well. Sorry, Yvonne, I just see a little pop-up about the time. Is that something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this is happening, Nicole. We have a plan that allows us to have 24-hour meetings, but it appears it's going to block us out. So I would suggest keep talking, and then when we're blocked out, everybody, please log back on again, and then Nicole will continue talking after we log back on. I apologize for this. I have no idea why Zoom is doing this to us today.
Hopefully it'll just carry over. We'll see.
I hope so. We'll see.
Pray, people, pray. Let's see if we can alter technology. So, you know, by the time I got into my 20s, my spiritual life kind of looked like this tree. I was an eclectic mishmash of different wisdom paths, understandings, and it was all very beautiful and eclectic, and I loved it, and it could, you know, reach out and support others, but it was a very big mix. And you know, so beautiful journey, carried on and on. Lots of different spiritually transformative experiences happened during this time, engaging with the path of yoga, going more deeply, opening up the third eye space, on and on it went. Until one day in my 30s, or just as I was turning 30, I had another one of those peak experiences that really, I guess, pivoted the life course again. So from that tree, of growth, I had a healing center by this point. I was working with people on their journeys. I was diving into all of these different modalities. And I'm sure many of you will relate when you go on your path as well. You know, you just become so open to different things that are going on out there in the world. And I realized though, you know, 29, 30, I sucked at business. I didn't like that aspect of it. And so I closed down the business. And by shutting down an external aspect of my identity, it actually triggered a shutting down of other layers of my identity in my psycho-spiritual space. And so I went through a period of 3 days that was spontaneous, where I went in and out of ordinary and non-ordinary states of consciousness. The language I now put into that was I had a combination of a shamanic clearing journey and a combination of a kundalini clearing that happened. So there was a very downward drive and a very upward drive over 3 days. And so the downward drive went into the ancestral tracks. I was able to meet people from my ancestral lineage and clear and work with pieces that had become caught up in my DNA story that were unresolved from the past. Fascinating journey. And then that just carried out until it was complete in its own way. And what happened after that was an upward movement where, I liken it to walking through molasses. It was like taking a sword and cutting through all of the dark, dross, sticky things that had, attached themselves over time through traumas as a child, different experiences that as a young structure, my psyche was unable to deal with. And yet something in the wisdom of my system came to a point in time where it was ready to heal itself and complete certain processes. So this is an absolutely fascinating, spontaneous journey that we all have access to in our psyches. And when things are ready to do their thing, to do their work, sometimes they can take over our lives, and that can be incredibly awkward. Lucky for me, I was in my home environment. I had loving family nearby who were open. And even though I was asked by one of my family members to take myself to the hospital because I had a high fever, I was a mess on the couch, I couldn't move off that couch. I'd gotten to the stage of my journey now where I understood something important was happening and was able to say to, my loved one, I'll go if I really need to, which I probably couldn't have because I was on that couch after 3 days, but thankfully it completed itself. And at the very end of that process, I liken it to the peeling of an onion. At the peak of that 3 days, the peeling sped up. And layer by layer, each of those layers was a layer of identity. And the thing that I call this sense of self, was getting very desperate to grasp onto anything that gave it a sense of stability. So the I said, I am Nicole. And then the greater force that was working with me stripped that away. I am girl on couch. And this just got more rapid towards the very end, where at the final moment, there was absolutely nothing left except what you see on the screen there, but a pinprick of light, just a pinprick of light. And I call this a near-death-like experience. There was no death involved. You know, I wasn't in a hospital. I didn't physically die in any way, but it has an ego death element to it, where the I that I knew up until that point died, and the essence that was always in existence revealed itself. And an incredible aha happened at that time when I understood I am nothing more and nothing less than this pinprick of light. The realization was that everything beyond this pinprick of light is a co-creation. They're patterns, they're archetypal forces, they are systems that I get to co-create and play with if I want to. I get to be an active participant in creating all of these layers of identity. And I just relaxed a whole heap. I just chilled out after that realization happened. It was like, wow, I get to be really playful in life if I want, if I choose. So that was a real pivot point in life that shifted gears from then onwards and really allowed me to just release things that I probably would have got my knickers in a knot about prior to that. And so, of course, as many of you would know, once you have experiences as profound as this that shake you to your core and your roots, the next layer becomes external, eventually over time. How do I then work with this with other people? How do I help others along the way? A sense of service gets awakened and aroused. So I already had a lot of that beforehand, but it now took on a new dimension. Because of this freedom, there was now a real freedom where I could be in presence with other people and help their light come through in many ways. I'm also sorry to jump. I see that there's less than a minute on this notification. We might lose each other. And if we do, jump straight back on and we'll carry on our conversation there. Sorry, folks.
Let's hope it doesn't bump us out. So why don't you keep going till the moment it pumps us out, and then everyone log back in if we get bumped out. Technical problems.
Technical problems. So, you know, it then becomes about walking out into the world and being of service. That, you know, for me personally was the next step in the evolution. I've started working with who I call agents of awesome, you know, folks that have gone through their own awakening experiences and are feeling that sense of service themselves and want to step out powerfully into the world. And again, when we have these, you know, experiences, we understand those gorgeous aspects of wisdom and love, etc., that are burning and yearning to come through people and have a place in the world. And so that's exactly what I love putting time and service towards right now. And then came the refresher experience. Pause for dramatic effect and maybe the kick out. And it doesn't look like, it looks like we're still rolling. Great. So here comes the refresher. About 3 years ago, I gave birth to an amazing child, and the birthing process, all of you folks out there that have been through it will know, is one of the might just need to step out and do things a little bit differently. And this comes quite further along on the path of awakening, where one has, you know, understood the gifts, taken the wisdom out of those gifts, integrated them more or less as living relatively stably, though experiences might continue, but has now come into a form of understanding more how to be of service and actively pursuing that in the world. I did want to give a couple of examples of people, but I'm aware of time right now, so I might skip through those. If we need to come back, then, you know, I can always provide those, but I'll leave them for now and start the wrap up so that we can jump into a bit of the Q&A. Georges Ferrer is a transpersonal psychologist, a professor, and he puts it beautifully. You know, the goal of this spiritual quest is not to have spiritual experiences, which we can get really caught up in because aren't they fascinating, the content of the experiences themselves? but rather it's to stabilize the spiritual consciousness, live a spiritual life, and transform the world accordingly. And I think that that statement so beautifully encompasses that journey of awakening and the different stages and phases through it. We are, folks, at a fascinating time on this planet. I don't know what, your beliefs are in terms of reincarnation, and, how we get here and what we're doing here. But nonetheless, if we have chosen to be on this planet at this time, boy, have we chosen a strange moment. Environmentally, major things are taking place. We are on this rock that is moving through space. And at some point in time, that journey of this beautiful rock might end in its own natural way. But until that day comes, we get to be co-creative agents on the planet. We get to be inhabitants on this incredible home. What a privilege. What a privilege to have a life on this planet. We are the only species that I'm aware of that is completely self-annihilating. We are ending our own journey quite dramatically and quickly at the moment. And if we're going to do something differently, if we're going to make different choices, now is always the best time to do it. And this is where I get very passionate about, who I call agents of awesome, folks that have had these awakening experiences, that are using their gifts and honoring their gifts, that are aware that they're on an interconnected planet, that care deeply about life and this generation and way beyond. This is our time. This is the time to step up. And so many agents of awesome that I speak with feel held back in many ways, whether it's programming from the past, a sense of who am I to do this, a lack of confidence in self, a lack of belief in self. These are the self-restricting pieces, the cages that can hold us back, particularly as caring people at this time, that can hold us back from actually stepping forward and just getting our gumboots on and getting on with it. There's Andrew Harvey, who you might have heard of, has this wonderful term he calls sacred activism. And it's this bringing together the fire of spirituality with the fire of wanting to be an active agent in the world, to actually do something and engage with where our greatest heartbreak might bring us. A very difficult journey to step into, but this is what I find is happening for folks who are eyes wide open on this planet at this time. This is not the time to bury our heads in the sand and spiritually bypass and check out. If anything, this is a time on the planet to bring in all of those resources, all of the wisdom, all of the knowing, the compassion, that deep sensitivity, and to step forward with it as loving, compassionate beings, and to take action in meaningful ways. And it doesn't have to be grand as in changing the world. This is where it comes into our location, our intimate relationships, our families, our communities, our neighborhood. It is the food that we grow and put into our body. It is conscious choices that we make in our day-to-day lives that have those many ripple effects. And of course, if there are enough of us engaging in that way of being, we can shift things overnight on this planet. And I'll end with, a beautiful reminder that Maslow came to in his liminal plateau experience year, which was that the sacred is in the ordinary. Again, we can get so caught up in these amazing spiritual experiences, the cosmic elements and the profound sentiments that are beyond language often. These are so important and incredible. And yet, what are we to do with them? It is the ordinary, sacred moments in the everyday that we can engage. It happens through you and me in these present moments together. This is where the magic can truly happen. And it wasn't just Maslow, of course, that came to this understanding. There are many on the spiritual paths who, you know, at the peak of that mountain, come right back down to the base of the mountain again to say, oh, it's the entire mountain. You don't have to live on some high peak in some little cave somewhere. It is that everyday engagement. So there it is, folks, the ordinary. Thank you very much. You would have received the links as well. That's how you can connect with me on any of the socials. That's a free book for you. If this topic today has spoken to you, grab the book. It's free. It's you know, you can download it and go through, and there are some practical things in there that really summarize this journey and go a little deeper, especially into aspects of personality and gifts. And if you identify with being an agent of awesome, then come along to the tribe. Again, that's free too. It's a Facebook thing. And come and meet. We're up to almost 700 people now, you know, other incredible people doing their thing in the world, having their exceptional stories too. Those links will be shared, I guess, when the replay comes out too. So if you haven't caught it here, you will catch it then.
Nicole, I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody that's participating. You did a great job of transforming from one phase into another 3 times. And we've had an active chat session, but there's really just one that has a question. I mean, the chat's pretty good. We're reborn, reborn again. Yes, we are present, really enjoying this. But I want to get to the question that was actually presented. Give me a moment to find it.
While Linda's searching, let me just say, if you have some questions, everyone, please enter it in the chat box.
Okay, I've got this one. So this is from Lynn McKinley. It says, hello, Nicole. It's been a very eye-opening experience indeed. I am here in search of hearing others' experiences and with reading, classes, etc. I believe I am processing through some sort of transformation, and just recently and over the past 8 to 9 months. Again, I am very new to this phase of my life. Lots of visions of people I don't know, flickering lights, sense of both negative or positive experiences. May this be related to what's going on in the world at present?
Beautiful question, Lynn. That's wonderful. And I think it's a question that a lot of people are asking themselves. As mentioned earlier, we're in a bit of a pressure cooker on this planet at this point. We know from the journey of spiritual transformation that crises can actually be a catalyst for transformation and change. And so when we look at the planet right now, I mean, there's no shortage of crises to go around. We're on an ecological crisis. We cannot continue to sustain our way of life right now. We're choking this planet, and nature can't be sustained. So we're killing ourselves in this environment. And there's an awareness that is clicking into people slowly about that. Then you overlay on top of that this pandemic that has happened right now, which has been such a fascinating time as well, because it's also clicked people into a mode around the conversation of existence. Ultimately, we're talking about something, you know, people's lives and the end of life. That's what health is all about, right? And then you start, you know, clamping in further on people's freedoms and movements, etc., and our ability to interact as human beings. This social distancing, literally distancing. We are social creatures, and as we distance from one another in a very systematic way, and we shut down our connections, this has a profound effect. This is a very spiritual experience in many ways, or at least spiritually impactful experience, by shutting down some of our basic needs as humans. So these crises that are taking place on a planetary level can be imagined like a pressure cooker in some ways, that's, you know, containing, squeezing the psyche, the spirit. And as a result of that, many people are having spontaneous experiences where they're popping through, they're waking up, their paradigms are being shifted. So I think that is taking place a bit more on the planet at this time. And again, because we have very few structures in place that can hold that, there are these awakenings of perception going on, and a lot of folks going, what on earth am I meant to do with this? You add into that things that are very popular these days too, on a time on the planet where so many people are searching for meaning in their existence. If you live a very, if you walk the standard path of life, school, university, job, marriage, retirement, so-called rainbow at the end of that can, if you followed that quite diligently, it can arouse the question somewhere along there of surely there's more to this. Isn't there more? Is this all there is? And perhaps that might come at the end of life, but often it kind of comes in the middle of that. And so I think we're in such a drab existence in many ways, and people, like you remember that slide early on, people are hungry for this experience of touching something beyond the clouds. That is that question, that comes from that question, surely there must be more than this. So we're in an age now that, again, is so interesting. We've never had access to more spiritual tools than we do right now. Plant medicine is massive at this point in time, whether it's done in very sound ways or whether it's done completely irresponsibly. Again, that's, part of the territory that's going on right now. Yoga has become a household word. Flow states are something that we all know about. We're becoming more able to access things that open and awaken. But again, without those resources and structures in place, we come across that problem of, and what am I to do about this? So I think what you asked there, Lynn, is right on. It's bang on with what's taking place on the planet right now. I think it's an experience many people are having, and then just go, and now what? And now what indeed?
All right, I'm gonna merge some of these comments. For those that have the chat box visible on their screen, you can see they're available if you hit the chat. But there were a couple of comments about Mercury being in retrograde, and all kinds of strange things are happening, like losing our Zoom session. Do you follow astrology, and is this part of your counseling program at all?
Yeah, I love astrology. I dabbled once upon a time, but the charts got way too complex for me. So it's not my area. I'm not an astrologer. Thanks for pointing out that we're in a Mercury retrograde right now. Maybe that's part of the greater learning. Yeah.
Yes, there was another comment that said, I so resonate with this. We are all taking one step forward and then 5 steps back. Just part of the energy of today's situation. There is a longer comment here. It says, thank you so much, ladies. I am fascinated by the physical changes that can occur in relation to spiritually transformative experiences, as this is part of my experience. Nicole, you mentioned about Maslow's triangle. I wonder how common it is in your experience talking with people that they experience long-term altered physical abilities, what some call disabilities.
It happens. It happens. I've spoken with many people who talk about chronic illnesses, certain conditions. They've gone in and out of the conventional medical system. They've had tests, they've had all kinds of things, and there's no answer. They can't find answers, or maybe they find certain different answers, but it doesn't get to the core of what they feel. This is an area we need to be very careful with, because you should always consult medical practitioners to understand as well, is there something going on medically? Maybe there is a medical condition and the world of modern medicine may have an explanation for you. It's often compartmentalized though, and will only show you a certain piece of the puzzle. Then, of course, you have your holistic alternate practitioners who might have a slightly larger picture around what might be going on. And then you'll have people who will come from a spiritual perspective and probably give you, you know, a different take on that altogether. A danger can also be, and I've met people that have done this as well, can be completely wanting to disengage and not be part of and not want to hear what the conventional medicine world has to say, and only, you know, going into a so-called spiritual explanation or an energetic explanation of what can be taking place. And that can be a dangerous thing to do as well. I mean, we have some specialists here who, you know, Dr. Yvonne can speak to this at great length, and I know there will be others in this gathering where this is their area, whether it be in physical, you know, the body medicine, or whether it be in the realm of psychology, psychiatry. I've come to the conclusion that they each have their place. And information is always going to be helpful. So where we can, to gather as much information, and at the core of that, to know that you at the end of the day are the experiencer. So I place a lot of emphasis on one's own intuitive wisdom about it. Listen to what's out there and, you know, navigate a path with eyes wide open, understand the information being presented to you.
Okay. So you had been speaking about Homo sapien lumina, I believe was your title of it, as we are evolving. And there were some comments that came in from, at that time. It says, one from Iris says, I know deeply that we have that potential to evolve into something greater. And Deborah indicated that, she says, I feel that we are in a birthing stage, which can be difficult and painful. And I think she brought that up just before you talked about your transition phase, the birth. And somebody, Lynn, then discussed about it all being a renewal of self, and that anyone who wants to accept it can do so. I'm looking for one. There was another one here from Iris. You talked about this came in as you were talking about the long, difficult birth. And she says, 3 days. Interesting. Is metaphor for crucifixion to resurrection? Has anybody given you that type of comparison before?
No, and thank you. I like it.
A number of comments on reborn. Let me see. I got 5 new ones that came in.
And on that reborn topic, Linda, you know, there are some phrases, spiritually speaking, that are being applied to this time on the planet. So some have called it a collective dark night of the soul that is happening. You know, if you come from the NDE community, many people in the NDE community will say we're having a planetary NDE at this time. So there's the rebirthing language as well. But what those are all boiling down to is we're in a really challenging, uncomfortable phase right now. This is dark. It might get darker. It might get more challenging. Birth is a very messy, painful, often process. And yet they all hold this idea that there's hope, that something is emergent on the other end of that is better, more light-filled. I hope so.
So Asta has a question. Are weird and disturbing dreams happening for others? And I'm assuming she's having some. So I'm going to address that to you, Nicole. Have you had any recent weird or disturbing dreams?
I have a very rich dream world in any case. But more generally speaking, I'm hearing more people speak about very strong dreams lately. Does that mean there's something bigger going on? Does that mean there's something in a collective field that is taking place? Are we being worked on in some ways? I mean, look, this gets to the core question of what is a dream. And even within the dream community, dreams remain quite a mystery in terms of what they are, where they come from, what they're communicating, why they happen. There's all kinds of theories about it, but a dream is such a beautiful place that suspends us between the ordinary waking and the liminal. It's one of the most common ways that we can access the transcendent if we're open to messages that can come through the dream space. This goes into our ability to work with symbols, with metaphors, with the weird. All of these things can take place. And just because you have very dark, disturbing dreams, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a literal application to that in life, that life has to be dark and disturbing. In fact, in some cultures, dreaming of death, for example, actually symbolizes a birth. Dreaming of a birth actually symbolizes a death. So there can be very, opposite ways of understanding dreams. They're like these magic puzzles. And we need quite a bit of patience and openness to work with them. So if you're someone that's finding all of a sudden recently dreams are coming on a lot stronger, more profound, I would highly suggest taking the time to respect and honor those dreams, because maybe they want to communicate with you. Maybe this is a part, a gift, an ability that you have that is a channel that your consciousness is open to, that's wanting to engage with you. And I once had the great pleasure of being a student of the late Jeremy Taylor, who an incredible dream worker. That was his work for over 50 years, and he traveled the world helping people with their dreams. And, he really taught to maintain that openness and respect to that part of ourselves. And at one point he described it like the subconscious is like a puppy dog. And the more that we actually pay that puppy dog attention and give it love and affection and throw it the bone, the more excited the puppy dog becomes. And it comes back at us with even more love and energy and enthusiasm. And so if we say to our dreams, I'm open, I'm listening, I'm ready, tell me, guide me what to do, write them down, journey with them through the day if there's a symbol that pops up. All of those things are like throwing the puppy dog a bone, giving it love, and it will no doubt speak even more powerfully. Join a dream circle. People will help you, but always, and this is something Jeremy said too, you are the dreamer. At the end of the day, don't let anybody else tell you what your dreams mean. You are the dreamer. Listen to perspectives, be open to them, and when something goes aha for you and it resonates, then that's a good sign that you're onto something.
Okay, so we're going to look for those leads. I got one here from Amy. Do you have thoughts about how and why some near-death experiencers become healers of the laying of hands sort? Could this relate to the changes in electrical flow through the bodies of the experiencer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, different people, different abilities. We're wired differently. This is where I find personality comes into the mix. It could be nice to want certain gifts and to aspire towards certain gifts, but an easier pathway is to accept our own modes. And what comes naturally to us. And so for some, the energetic healing and the laying on of hands, that's going to be their thing. But that's just because you have a near-death experience, it doesn't mean that's going to be an ability that you have, nor do you need to have a near-death experience to awaken any kind of gift whatsoever. Please don't try and die just to have certain gifts awaken. That's not what this is about at all. It's so variable upon the individual, and hence that's really why such a core part of the journey is to understand, who am I on this, and what am I experiencing? This is why I talked about flow states as well. What comes most easily, most naturally to me, where I sink into something that feels in my zone. This is your core area of genius. This is where it will come through. And hip hip hooray for you. If the laying on of hands is your thing, that's great. There are many people within that community as well who are masters in teaching how to do that well also.
All right, well, I wanted to let you know that the ones that you addressed, the questions you addressed, we're getting responses. They're saying thank you. That was very insightful reply. And let me check this one last one that came in. Okay. I want to share just a token word of appreciation that we're getting from those that have attended today. And this is from Carol Van Groff. Wait a minute, one more thing here. Thank you for this extraordinary session. It was perfect. So grateful for all of you. And I'm looking at our timeline. Do we still have 15 more minutes, Yvonne, or?
Well, I think we should wrap up before we get bumped out again.
That's what I was thinking. And we will try to save those chats for you to look at, Nicole. I'm not sure if they all saved because we got cut off, but we'll do our best to share those with you afterwards.
Thank you. I'm reading through
on behalf
now.
of everybody.
It's a joy to see people feeling affirmed on the journey. That makes my heart sing. And I'm just so grateful to have had the time to be here with you all. So thank you.
Okay, I do have more. Nicole, I appreciate you for doing today's session. And it's my time now to talk about what is coming next. Being November, we do have a special speaker lined up, but we also have a special event. In the United States, we call it Veterans Day. And this is a day that we look back and we say thank you to those that are still here for their wonderful service in the military to help serve and protect our country. And we're gonna have a special event on November 11th with Reverend John Price. And the time is supposed to be at, I believe, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're back to our...
Actually, it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 4 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. And we hope you'll join us. We'll send you a special notice for it to register. And there's more to come in the Veterans, Military, and First Responders program.
Thank you, Linda. I was trying to find Robert Barrett, but he doesn't seem to, wait, there he is.
I'm here.
There you are.
I just want to give these just a few closing remarks. Thank you, Dr. Nicole Gruel. It was wonderful. You did a great job. Thanks to Sydney Ions and to the Agents of Awesome for co-sponsoring today's event. Please check our Spiritual Awakenings International website for our blogs and news and for all the upcoming events that we're having. And just a reminder, our normal presentation is the third Saturday of every month, except we have the special Veterans Day presentation, but we will still have on the third Saturday in November, we will have Raymond O'Brien from England, and he's absolutely fabulous. Please check him out. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. This has been a great experience. I learned a lot from Nicole today, and this network and SAI is emerging so rapidly. Thank you for taking part in it. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Yvonne Cason for closing remarks.
Thank you, Robert. I apologize, everyone, for the technical difficulties. We're going to blame Mercury Retrograde. Thank you to PMH, who said that might be the reason we were having the problems today. So thank you, everyone, for logging in and logging out. Now we are officially going to wrap up. So I'm going to say goodbye until our next event in November in 5 languages. So goodbye to you all. Adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, buenos tardes, arrivederci, and ciao. Bye, all.